So for those of you who can remember it, Family Matters was a very popular TV series. It ran for just about a decade. And you might recall one of the signature characters, probably the signature character, Steve Urkel. And if you can't imagine him or you can't see him, you might be able to connect to his supersized glasses, his suspenders, his flooding pants, and you might also recall his signature catchphrase, "Did I?" All right, so you got the right one. "Did I do that?" That's Steve Urkel. He's a nerd. And like most sitcoms centered on the family, Family Matters sought to communicate the message that family matters, as in family is important, but it also sought to deal with some of the issues that come up in families, like the matters that most families find themselves working through. And so like most sitcoms, this series will run along two parallel tracks, and each of those tracks is intended to remind us that, one, family matters, like family is important. There's some stuff that we get through only because of the support system we have around us. And then family matters present themselves whenever there's discord or dysfunction in the family. Breathe. I don't know anything about you or your family, so this series has nothing to do with you. That's a disclaimer. So we're not talking about anybody or anybody's business, but rather we're talking about principles. Somebody say principles. Tools. Somebody say tools. And techniques. Somebody say techniques. That any of us can use in order to deal in ways that are healthy with our family because it's important, and with our family because our family are made up of people and people have issues. How many of you know people have issues? Now, as we enter into this series, it's important for us to recognize that we are threefold beings. We are spirit, soul, and body. Is that right? And just as it's important to recognize that we are threefold beings, spirit, soul, and body, it's also critical that each aspect of our being be recognized, fed, and supported so that we can live well-rounded lives. It does little good to be spiritually grounded and spiritually bound, but to have your relationships tattered and your happiness in shreds. That is, it's not the intention of God that in your core nature you would be good, but in your physical living you would be dissatisfied. That's not the divine design. Are you with me? And so one of the things that we have to do is every now and again just circle back to some of the basics. That's the beautiful thing about basics. They don't change. And one of the basics about each and every one of us, without exception, even if you're an introvert, no exception, each and every one of us is hardwired for relationship. That's the way God designed us. As a matter of fact, the only way to get here is to get here through some kind of relationship. And the two people might not have been in the relationship for more than the time that it took to create you. But that's still a relationship. And so we come through that which is naturally intrinsic to us. We're hardwired for relationship. I don't have to ask because I already know the answer. How many of you really want to be able to get along with the people who are in your stratosphere? We all do. We all do. Because we're hardwired for relationship. In order to create healthy relational experiences, we have to remain committed to the important and necessary ways to communicate. I believe we all deserve to be in relationships where we're appreciated and celebrated and not just tolerated. And Dr. Virginia said that every relationship that is meaningful to us rests on two things, love and or trust. And so in order for the relationship to remain intact, those two things have to somehow remain intact. If they are not intact, hear me, we have to learn how to repair them. So if the love has been broken and the relationship is meaningful, what that says to us is we have to learn how to repair the love. If the trust has been broken and the relationship is meaningful to us, what that says to us is we have to learn how to repair the trust. Meaningful relationships don't just evaporate. Are you with me? You've heard me say this before in the Family Matters series, intertwines each of the 6 primary relationships. There are 6 primary relationships. There is the God connection, what our relationship is with our spiritual father. There is the self connection. What is my relationship with me? There is the mate connection. What's my relationship like with my significant other? There is the parent connection. What's my relationship like with my parents? Get this, whether they're still here or not. Because my guess is there are some of us carrying baggage, and we didn't give ourselves, or we haven't yet given ourselves an opportunity to heal, and without them being present, we don't know how to reconcile it. I want to help you be able to reconcile it so that you can put down the baggage. How many of you know having too much baggage makes your road that much difficult? There is the child figure connection, and then there is the friend connection. So when we are talking about it in this context, the family is an institution and it's a microcosm of society, the family. And the family then breaks down into 4 basic categories. There is the nuclear family. That's the parents and the children. Those are the ones who are having dinner around the table. All of us don't have that. But all of us long for a nuclear family. There is the immediate family. It consists of our parents, our brothers and sisters, our children, our husband and wife. That's our immediate family. Then there's the biological family, just those that you are related to by blood. You know, that cousin you don't claim. That uncle who gets on your nerve. Or the one who misused your trust and invaded your space. That's the blood family. And then there is this last distinction that I heard Iyanla Vanzant make, and I love this distinction. She said, it's important that we make this distinction. She said, also we are related to our family by blood. She said, but we get to choose. Somebody say choose. She said, we get to choose our relatives. And she said, our relatives are a part of our family, and they are the people that we decide to be in relationship with. So for some of us, our family is in this room. When you come here, that's when you're with your family. The folk by blood are only related to you by blood. If it's you, just keep looking forward. I don't want them to know that you don't see them like that. But the folk that you choose to be in relationship with, those relatives are also a part of your family. So you're really a part of a much larger family than you might realize. That's good news. Now, sometimes in families, challenges present themselves. And sometimes within the family relationship dynamic, issues occur. And when the issues occur within the family relationship dynamic, it threatens the stability of the family. Just like we saw with Joseph. I don't know if you remember Joseph from the book of Genesis. Joseph was the son of Israel. And it just so happened that Joseph was the favorite son. How many of you parents have a child that's actually Your favorite. No, don't answer. I'm not going to ask you to answer. But you know in your heart of heart and in your soul of souls, there's just something a little bit different about how you relate to that child. We love all of our children, but they have different needs. They're different people. They have different needs. But sometimes we're just a little bit closer to one than we might be to the others. This was the case with Joseph, Eugene. And as it turned out for Joseph, his father couldn't hide his favor for Joseph. And in not being able to hide his favor for his favorite son, Ruby, what he did was he gave his son, his favorite son, this very elaborate, sharp coat. In the scripture, they call it the coat of many colors. And I don't know if you know a lot about Joseph, but Joseph really had two major issues. The first issue that got him in trouble was just the fact that he was a dreamer. He was a visionary. How many of you know that everybody's not going to be able to roll with the vision when you see it? The second major problem about Joseph is he talked too much. He couldn't wait to tell his brothers and his father and his mother that he was favored not only above the brothers but above everybody. And sometimes when folk talk too much, they get on your nerve. And sometimes when folk get on your nerve, you figure out a way to deal with them. And so what Joseph's brothers did was they decided to take him away. And rather than kill him, they sold him off in slavery. And that series of decisions began an experience for Joseph that would bring him to the place where he had to find forgiveness. I'm guessing that while you may not have been sold into bondage, and while you may not have been tossed into the pit, and while you may not have been a safekeeper of the palace, and while you may not have been imprisoned, and while you may not have been the chief financial officer over the kingdom, you probably do know what it's like to be rejected. I'm guessing you probably do know what it's like to be betrayed. You probably know what it's like to be abandoned. You probably know what it's like for people you love and trust to do things to you that you never thought they would do. You probably know what it's like to stand at the seat of forgiveness. And so what I want to talk to you about for the next few minutes is, how do we deal with the baggage through forgiveness? Is that all right? One of the first things I want you to know is that forgiveness is not about letting someone get away with their dirt. Put that in your notes. Forgiveness is not about letting anyone get away with their dirt. It reminds me of this mother who once approached Napoleon seeking pardon for her son. And the emperor replied to the mother, "Your son has committed the same offense twice. And his second offense of that same crime requires his death." And the mother said, "But Emperor, I don't ask for justice. I ask for mercy." And the emperor said, "Your son does not deserve mercy." And the mother said, "If he deserved it, it wouldn't be mercy." And so there are people in your life who have done you wrong. They've done you dirt. You deserved better. You should have gotten better. They owed you more and they could pay you no more than they gave you. There are people who abandoned you and rejected you, left you high and dry, couldn't keep their promises, couldn't uphold their oath to fidelity. They do not deserve your mercy, but you don't forgive for them, you forgive for you. See, forgiveness is about recognizing what happens when you hold on to the pain and the hurt of yesterday. Forgiveness is the key that releases and frees us from those we feel have done us wrong. So forgiveness is really your ultimate freedom if you want to deal with your baggage and not be held in a prison to what someone in your life or in relationships has done. I want you to figure out if you can be free and forgive. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you support the behavior that caused the pain. Nor does it mean that you don't take action to change the situation. I am a city boy through and through, and I've never actually seen a mule, but I do agree with this saying, there is nothing to be learned new from the second kick of a mule. Everything you need to know about that mule's kick, you learned the first time. When you get kicked again, or if you get kicked again, it's okay to clap. That's a worthy clap moment right there. I can hear Reverend Coleman saying that forgiveness requires that we give love for whatever the offense is. So forgiveness then is a gift of grace and mercy given to those who choose to forgive because they don't want the negativity to eat them up. I don't know about you, but I don't want to attach my experience and my health and my joy and my peace to the wrong that you perpetrated upon me. I want to give myself something better than that. I don't want to be in bondage to the experience we had. And the longer I hold on to it, the longer I talk about it, the longer I rehearse it, the more entrenched it becomes in my soul. There's some people who can tell you the story of their worst pain and their worst mishandling. They can tell you in their sleep. You wake them up out of their sleep. It was 1972. It was a sunny in the morning, but it rained in the afternoon. We took my car because she didn't have one, trifling self. Got the details down pat. And watch this. When you retell it, watch where it puts you. It was 1972. It was sunny in the morning, but it rained in the afternoon. Right? Because we literally understand your power. You literally have the ability to take yourself back to a past that is already gone. Don't miss how powerful you are. You literally have the ability to recreate and reimagine whatever was happening to you internally and bring what happened 60 years ago into your today. But just as you can bring the pain of yesterday back into your day, in your today, you can bring the overcoming of tomorrow into your today. So you don't need any special formula in order to forgive. All you have to do is commit yourself to the process of forgiving. Are you with me? And so forgiveness doesn't come just because somebody asked for it. Forgiveness doesn't even come just because somebody earned it. Forgiveness only comes when I decide that I want to be free. Watch this, because relationships, familial relationships, can be destroyed when we only focus on the deed that made us angry. But when we take a deeper cut at forgiveness, we also get a deeper understanding of what's taking place in the heart and in the mind of the person who hurt us. See, here is what I know about myself, and so here's what I also know about you. We live out of our own consciousness. Here is what that means from a very practical standpoint. It means I also live out of the sense of pain and anger and woundedness, just like the person who hurt me. See, if I knew you were doing it because you couldn't do any better, that would help me forgive a little bit easier. But I'm assuming that you know how to do better. Can I let you in on a secret? We all make the best decision we can make at the time we're making it. If we were able to make another decision, guess what we would do? We would make another decision. And so if your wound, if your hurt is driving you, then when you meet me, it might be that same hurt, the same wound that you haven't healed. So why do I want you to forgive? So that when you move into your next season, you're not still carrying the same wounds from 1972 into your new opportunity. Because the new person you meet, they might be too healthy to put up with that foolishness. And so we somehow find ourselves behaving from the fear, the guilt, the sense of woundedness. There was a Spanish story about a father and a son who had become estranged. And so the son ran away from home. And the father wanted to reconcile, and so he set out to find his son. And it didn't matter where he looked, he couldn't find his son. And so in a last ditch effort, his last attempt was to put an article, an ad in the Barcelona Times. And in the article, it said, Chester, "Dear Paco, this is your dad. Everything is forgiven. I want to meet you in the front of the Barcelona Times building tomorrow morning at noon." And that ad ran in the morning. By 12 o'clock the following day, 800 Pacos had showed up. Because these were all sons looking to be forgiven and reconciled in their relationship with their father. These guys were carrying the wounds. And there's no telling what litters in their path. Sometimes, as men, the best we can do is a result of where we've been. Sometimes as men, we don't give ourselves an opportunity to heal. And so the first broken heart is the same heart we bring to every relationship. It's the same wound, but a different woman. And so we wonder why he can't get it together. It's because he's broken. That's what Frederick Douglass said. It's easier to raise a healthy boy than it is to repair a broken man. But men, we got to learn how to forgive. It's eating us up. It's showing up in our bodies. We got to learn how to forgive. It's not worth it. We got to be able to deal with the baggage so that we can get free. And so then forgiveness is not about letting anyone deal with their dirt. Rather, forgiveness is about finding the unique good in ourselves and in others and letting the judgment that predisposed us in one way, letting that judgment go so that we can do something else. The second thing we have to do in order to forgive is we have to remember that forgiveness is choosing to feel better. Repeat after me. Forgiveness is choosing to feel better. Forgiveness is a voluntary act. It's a choice that we make about how we will deal with what has occurred in the past. I want to say that again because I don't want you to miss that. Forgiveness is a voluntary choice that we will make about how we will deal with what has happened in the past. It does not matter, hear me, it does not matter how long ago the hurt was, whether it was 30 minutes or 30 years. Either way, it's in the past. Right? The span of time is a small factor compared to whether or not I will choose forgiveness. That's why I love the quote by someone who says, Forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past. I wish I had a echo to. I wish I was in an echo chamber so it would say, forgiveness is giving up all hope for a better past. Past. How many of you wonderfully, divinely intelligent people know that there is no way to go back and reconcile your past? You just have to choose to make a new decision in the moment. So even when we talked about reconciling with parents who are not here, we decide to forgive in the moment. So you don't have to go back and fix 1972. Just choose to be better in the moment. If you choose to be better in the moment, the past will take care of itself because it's tucked away already. Are you with me? I remember I was at this conference, and I was going to have lunch with one of my colleagues. And at the table waiting for him. And 5 minutes go past, and 10 minutes go past, and 15 minutes go past, and he's still not here. And you all heard me a little bit last week. There's an issue around time. I think, say he thinks, I think it has something to do with being told that I'm coming to get you, and then he never shows up. But I'm waiting for my God. And time is passing. And the more time passed, the hotter I get. Now, it wasn't like when I was going through, what we say last week? Customs. Wasn't like going through customs. Last week, I couldn't remember anything. At least this time, I could remember an affirmation. I could remember a prayer. I could bring myself back. But then when he sat down, he was all jovial. Like he was happy to see me. And it threw me back because I'm salty and he's happy. I'm salty about the fact that he's got me waiting. And he comes down in joy. And then he asked me something that really messed me up. Because I wanted him to know I was mad. You know how you do. Somebody asks you a question, you get a real short, terse answer. What? What you thinking about ordering? I don't know. So he said, bro, you all right? That messed me up. Because now I have to decide whether or not I'm going to be in the past or be in the present. Now I've got a choice to make. He messed me up. So in the moment, I chose to be fully present. And I didn't deal with the fact that he kept me waiting, but rather I just dealt with the fact that we were there to fellowship. I'm like, come on, man, let's kick it. Let's do that. But it was a choice. Because how many of you know I could have stayed salty. That's not really the word I want to use. But I am in church. Because I could have stayed there. But it's a choice. How many of you know it's a choice to stay there? So you don't think you're making a choice, but you are always at choice. Whenever you decide to not forgive, you are making a choice. You are always at choice. And so it's not really about the fact that they were late. It's not really about the fact they couldn't uphold their word. It's about what do you want? What do you choose for you? Because here's what I also realized. As steamed as I was, he wasn't feeling any of it. So you mean to tell me my cells and my glands and my tissues and my fibers are the only ones having this experience? He's on joy and I'm on upset? That don't make sense. He's the one that's late. Are you with me? And so forgiveness is simply a choice. It requires us to choose to feel better. It requires us to choose to feel better. And sometimes we don't realize that we think we're making a choice, but we're not. I was having a counseling session with someone, and they said, "But Rev, I've forgiven, but I feel the same." I said, just because you say you forgive doesn't mean you've actually forgiven. I said, it's kind of like standing in a garage and affirming that I'm a Cadillac. The fact that I stand there and affirm that I am a Cadillac just because I'm standing in a garage does not make it so. Right? So I can say I forgive, but when you do it again, or when you do something else, you know I haven't forgiven because all of it comes rushing back like the mighty currents. And so forgiveness is a choice. One of the things that you have to consistently ask yourself when it comes to forgiveness is, what do I want to feel? Ask yourself, ask and answer that question for yourself consistently. What do I want to feel? Because what you feel is not an indication of what I have to feel. What do I want to feel? What do I want out of this exchange? What do I want from this experience? Because it's my consciousness that becomes manifest in my life, world, and affairs. What do I want from the experience? Are you with me? And so if you are going to forgive, you got to choose to feel better. You got to choose to feel better. If I'm holding on to something, I have to recognize that despite any other person's role in creating the experience, I'm responsible for choosing what I do with the hurt. And so I have to decide that if the oven is hot, I'm going to remove my hand. Are you with me? Forgiveness requires us to live powerfully in the present. Remember, I just said to you that your past is in your past, and your present is in your now. And in order for those two to meet, I have to invite my past into my present. Forgiveness requires me to change my perceptions and my judgments. See, it's in changing my perception, it's in changing what I make the thing mean. How many of you know that one of the most important decisions you will make is what something means to you? So it's in changing what I make it mean that I begin to change my perception and I begin to change my judgment. See, to go back to Joseph, after having gone through all that he had been through, a miraculous thing happened. The same people who had done Joseph dirt had to come see him now. And they were tripping a little bit because as they were standing in the line to talk to the man, like they couldn't get what they needed lest they come through the man, as they were standing in the line to talk to the man, they're like, man, that dude sounds like our brother. And he looks just like our brother. Do you all remember what we did to our brother? When they get to see him, Joseph immediately knows who they are. They're not quite sure about who he is. And they have this exchange. And Joseph reveals to us the heart not only of a king, but he reveals to us the heart of forgiveness. Joseph presents it to them this way. He says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. See, even God applies meaning in our life, world, and affairs. Now, if I can just deal with this word just real quick, just for a quick minute, if I can deal with this word mean. Somebody spell mean for me. Somebody spell mean for me real quick, real quick. M-E-A-N, mean, M-E-A-N. And so what I make a thing mean becomes what it is in my life, world, and affairs. But it's interesting about that word mean, because if I were to rearrange the letters and to spell the word name, I could take the same letters in the word mean and spell a different word. I could spell name. I could spell name, and name is spelled what? N-A-M-E. And if we recall the Garden of Eden story, God said, what you name it will be its nature. Are you with me? And so not only can I give it meaning, it becomes that in my life, but what I name it, it becomes the nature. Can we try one more? So not only do we have what it means, we also have the ability to name. But if I rearrange the letters just one more time, A-M-E-N, that spells an amen. When we sing it says, it's done, hallelujah, it's done. It's done, hallelujah, it's done. So I can go from experience to giving it meaning, from giving it meaning to it taking an effective nature, from giving it an effective nature to it being finished in my life. So you name it good, regardless of what they intended it for, because they can mean it for one thing, but God and you can make it work for your good. And I'm not saying you have to make them be wrong. I'm just saying you get to determine what it means. We'll close with this. There were these two paddle boats that were going from Memphis to New Orleans. And as these two paddle boats left the coastline, the two crews started to talk back and forth across their ship's bows. And you know how it is when guys get together and one crew is with one crew and the other crew is with the other crew. We do our testosterone thing and we get all puffed up, and it's not too long before there's a challenge, and when there's a challenge, there must be competition. And so as these two boats are streaming down the river, the boats start to run out of fuel. One boat starts to pull ahead of the other, and so in order to make up ground, they start to use more coal. Now, there was enough coal to make the journey, but there was not enough coal for a race. Are you with me? And so there was this enterprising young sailor who started to take some of the cargo that they were supposed to transport, and he started to throw the cargo into the furnace. And what they realized was that the cargo burned just as good as the coal did. But an amazing thing happened. They won the race, but in winning the race, they no longer were able to transport the cargo, which was a part of their purpose. How many of us have cargo that we call family? That in order to win the race, we throw them in the furnace. We burn the relationship, we burn the asset, and we win the battle, but we lose the war. If you are a part of a family, you've got some precious cargo traveling with you. And I want to encourage you to not throw it away just because it'll help you move faster. Forgive, and that'll help you deal with the baggage. God bless you.